In this episode of Leadership Hustle, we're going to talk about drama, specifically related to family businesses. Hello, and welcome to the Leadership Hustle for executives whose companies are growing fast and need leaders who are ready. Hi there, and welcome back to this episode of Leadership Hustle. This is the third episode in a series of family business podcasts that we are addressing various aspects of the family business.
Yes.
So I'm Andrea Fredrickson, and I'm joined by Michelle. And again, we can go on. These are longer episodes, just a little bit, just because this is one of our passions. Super interesting fact. Just realizing that all of the members of our team have family business connection in some way, shape, or form. Either they were part of a family business, they worked in a business that was family, they were married into a family business, owned their own business. There's all kinds of things.
All kinds of dynamics.
And so we have a lot of expertise in this. And so, my passion, very specifically, I drag everybody into it, is about family business because I grew up in a family business. And then my father and I started another business, and our families have been involved in various aspects of it. But then we get to talk to lots of family businesses. And there's so many private businesses and family businesses here in the Midwest.
Yes, there are. There's a lot. And I find it really interesting, too, because sometimes they don't realize it, which I know we've talked about that.
Right.
But I know I was just a good friend of mine. A group of us were together, and for years, he's never referred to as the business as a family business, right? It's always been, his dad started it, and then he's transitioned, and kind of involved. But he referred to it as a family business for the first time. And I'm like, well, at least in front of me. And I was like, oh, when did you decide this? Because it was, in, I guess, maybe in their perspective, maybe, and it probably was, well, no, there was always people involved that were family. I just don't know if it was necessarily thought of as the family.
Well, some people don't want to refer to their business as a family business because people might think they're not sophisticated or they're not able to do that.
A variety of assumptions.
There's so many different assumptions. And the reality is family business is what makes up this country and these private businesses. And, I think about a lot of things as it relates to family business. I had this profound thought I was just going to share with you, and it's gone now. So
sorry.
Sorry, it's okay. But as we get into these family business, I remember what it is. One of the things that I talked to the owners of a family business about, and even the next gen, is I mentioned to them that when people, the owners of a business, give their children a gift that they don't even know about, and that is that by growing up in a family business, they understand that, when you look at the shelves and it has inventory, that's not inventory, that's dollar bills sitting there, right?
Yes.
And how money is reinvested back into the business for growth. And they just have a different understanding about investment and growth and culture and family and tradition and legacy. There's so many things like that when they go work someplace else, if it's not in the family business, they take that with them and they view the business differently than as if it was a transactional event.
Yes.
So, those are things that maybe we haven't mentioned before, but today our topic is on drama.
Drama, which all organizations can. So let's just clarify that.
Yeah.
Not one's more than the other.
Nope.
But specifically when it comes to family.
Yeah.
A family business, we think about that drama. Let's talk about that a little bit. What are the most common types of drama that you're bumping into?
I would say the drama. There's two. One is the first generation isn't letting go of enough decision, authority, information, whatever it is, for the next generation to fill the boots, like do the next thing, do the next role, to take on and to grow the way they would want to, how they perceive they would grow if they were in a different business. That's a big drama. And so Gen 2, this might be you if you're listening, Gen 2 tends to come to me and say, how do I get dad to fill in the blank?
Yes.
That's the biggest drama. And it's like, I can't make that happen. you have to have that conversation. And have you had that conversation? Now, we talk about the different techniques that people need to have. It's like, have you set up time to have routine, maybe monthly lunches and one-on-ones, and you bring up these topics? It's not just, hey, let's go have a beer, which is fine, but let's go have a beer and, hey, I need your help. I'm looking for these things, and can you help me do this? You're building trust, you're building relationships, but you're also clarifying, I need this.
Yes.
And how can we iterate toward that? I don't expect the decision-making authority to be a light switch, but having those conversations. So I would say that's probably the number one drama that is brought to us initially.
Yes.
Okay.
Which, and from a non-family perspective, sometimes by dad or main own, family member holding on, it can get confusing for that non-family person, because it's like, well, I'm told I'm supposed to go to so-and-so because of the title change or whatever, but I still have to go to the original person, that first gen, we'll call it, right? And so then you feel like you're being disrespectful to second gen. I mean, so this drama ripples into.
And so second gen is like, why didn't you come to me? It's like, because I had to go to them to go to, right? It's like, it's rework, it's double work, it's just confusing.
It's just easier.
Yes. And so for some, they may not realize that that's drama, but that drama is when the current gen isn't ready to let go. Either because they still love what they're doing, but they've set some kind of precedence that someone else is going to be taking over at some point in time in the future. Or, yes, I'm 85 years old, but my 65-year-old son isn't quite ready to take over, which I literally have heard those words, right? Are you kidding me, right? So that drama comes along.
Yes.
But there's also the drama between family members, specifically between siblings. So that generation of similar aged, now, true, sometimes it's not siblings, it may be the cousin or
partners,
little brother of the owner that's a similar generation as the kids, right? Depending upon where they are in the birth order kinds of stuff. So it's that similar age group and who is ready for the next position, who has what authority, who's taking on the next role. It's all of those kinds of things. And so who's going to be the next CEO when dad moves to chairman? It's typically dad. I'm just using it for ease of conversation, okay? It could be mom, it could be uncle, it could be aunt, it could be any of that generation. But who's going to take over as the next CEO? And so the drama is whatever bias or assumptions we bring to the table. I'm the oldest, so I should get to. I went to business school, so I get to. I went and worked at, you name it, someplace that has a similar area, so I should get to.
I'm the younger brother.
I'm the younger brother. I'm the salesperson. I'm the one that brings in all the money anyway. I'm the strategic one. You fill in the blank. So you have that drama, but let's put a layer in that. Let's bring in their spouses.
Oh.
So let's bring in the spouses.
Most people are like, what do you mean spouses? Are they spouses working there, or is it spouses?
Maybe. So let's say that they're not working there.
So how the spouse is not working.
But I want, Michelle, you're my spouse, and I want you to be the CEO because that is going to bring more decision-making authority, and you deserve it, and I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to probably talk a little bit of smack about your siblings, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that's not fair. By the way, where did this word fair come from? It needs to just go away.
Well, and I think that fair can go both directions too, right?
Absolutely.
It can go, it's not fair between siblings, and then it can also swing over to the parents. Well, we got to be fair.
We got to be fair. The drama of I'm not putting an estate plan together because I can't make it fair across all the kids.
Yes.
So we don't. And so we create a cluster for the generation when something happens to them.
Yes. Right? And that could be not fair that planning for the children who work in the business and don't work in the business.
Right. The drama of we didn't put a family constitution into place so that we all know that the cousins that come into work are our second generation's kids come to work. It's like, well, how come they got a truck? Well, how come they got to come to work and they have a management position? I can't help it that they were born 10 years before my kids were, right?
Yeah.
Or 13 years
the
before
age,
my kids,
yes.
or, depending upon birth order and when they had kids, all these things where they're looking for fair and unmet expectation. That's where drama happens. And too often, that unfairness that's perceived is demonstrated at work.
Yes.
So either they don't talk to each other, so then everybody's like, why are Michelle and Andrea not talking to each other, right? Or there's this backstabbing, like that department versus my department, or there is it's the conversations of unmet expectations, and we're not having that. So if I were to say, all right, humans can bring drama because drama is about unmet expectations, and I feel like I have to voice it, and I have to behave according to it. Bring in your advisory team.
So remind me, who's all on that advisory team?
So advisory teams can be lots of different people. So some companies say, oh, I need a board of directors. I'm like, pause, because a board of directors typically has voting rights and get to do those things. I'm a big fan of advisory boards. Okay.
So tell us why.
So advisory boards are, you ask them questions, they can give you advice, they can notice things, they can give you information. You still get to make the decisions on what's going on.
Okay.
Are there places for boards of directors? Absolutely. Just understand the consequences between boards of directors and advisory boards. Okay. So an advisory board, a lot of times, businesses will always have an attorney somewhere, right? They take care of their business or labor or things like that. But an attorney that they can ask questions about, especially estate kind of planning attorney, right? You're going to have some kind of financial CPA, it could be an investment, but those are people who can also give you advice, but you still get to make the decisions, right? Oftentimes what I don't see is a professional family business advisor. And that is the person that can help elevate the unspoken. So the passive person who's sabotaging stuff on the backside, and actually it's probably more passive aggressive than passive, right? It is teaching people to have conversations that are going to be tricky and emotional. Some people will call them difficult. Yeah, some people will call them difficult conversations, but more so it is no one has the authority to make the decision except either the single owner, but that doesn't mean the relationship's any better. And we really want to preserve the business. Most owners will say, I will shut down the business or sell the business if the family doesn't get together or doesn't get along. So the family has to get along.
So can the family get along but not get along?
They can get along, but they can disagree.
Yes.
Okay. They can get along, but not agree. And I think that's the part is a professional person that is also a family member is agree to disagree, but not hold the grudge.
Not keep score.
Not keep the score, right? So bringing in that person who can help identify skills and assets and help with succession planning that's not emotionally involved and tied into the process, because the businesses and the families that you support and the customers that you support, they're all at risk if the family can't get their stuff together.
Yes. And when you say family, it's not just the family, it's the families that work in the family business that are non-family as well, right? It's a ripple effect. It impacts everyone.
It affects everybody.
And, because obviously those are things that you're getting brought in for most frequently, right? When you're in those meetings and you're working with a group that has the first and second generation in there, right? What are the things that you might find yourself doing or looking for to help facilitate and guide and moderate some of those heavy discussions, the elephants that maybe are bringing the elephant to the conversation? Like, what are those things that you're going to find yourself doing?
So two things. We'll have group and family meetings, and we'll have those a couple times a year. In between, I'm keeping in touch with the family members. I'm just, what's going on, what's going well, what conversations are getting tough, And so I kind of have an idea, taking the pulse of what's going on. I also am continuing to develop an understanding about how people behave. So looking for, what's somebody's tell when they're just not quite comfortable sharing something here, or what am I noticing that when somebody's voice starts to get loud, right? And everybody else starts to shut down. And so how do we manage that? And how do we teach people how to have those emotional conversations? We're watching for, does one person in the room step in and calm people down and not let the conversation go?
Shut it down.
The protector.
Unintentionally, yeah.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
Because this group, if anything they have to learn to do is they have to learn to tell the truth, be nice about telling the truth, but tell the truth, be honest, and disagree. They have to learn how to disagree and move on. Because
letting it go.
The parent, the dad, doesn't get to come in and say, my vote is this, and I circumvent all of you because I get to have that vote. It's like, there's nobody there to this. This, in most cases, there's equal ownership or equal authority in this family business who's ever there in those meetings, right? So there's also that. So it's not a matter of, well, if you all can't get along, I'm going to fire you. That has happened. That has happened. But then now it is, I'm against my sibling and my parent.
Yes.
All right. And my spouse and my grandchildren are involved in all of this, what's happening, right? So bringing in that third party who can watch for, we're going to go this far, and that's all the further we're going to go. And we're not going to make sure that we have a decision at the end of this. We're going to do this in iterations and look for those behaviors where it's like, there's too much going on. I need to process. And just because, each individual human has its own personality. So you've got the person who's going to talk, and the other person is just going to take it, and then they're going to think, and then they're like, I'm going to write a 12-page email in response to what they say, right? And so as we talk about reducing this drama, I think that there are a couple of main things. One, have a third party that both parties trust that can mediate, that can not take sides, can help make sure both sides are heard, can make sure that people are expanding on what the whole story is, tell the backstory as to why they are. Just went through this recently where a decision was being made among the family members, and one person needed to tell more of the backstory, but we couldn't really get the whole story because they weren't sure what words they could use. And so they finally got the whole story out, and it's like, oh, that makes complete sense, right? So having that third party. Two, making sure that I would say the current generation and the next gen have an outside person that they can go to and say, I'm struggling with dad, mom, sister, uncle, whatever it is.
Yes.
How do I approach this conversation?
Yes,
Okay.
that person, give them advice,
Right.
to help.
Like, and teaching them how to have a conversation and help them understand at the end of that conversation, you may not get the result you want, but it's progress toward something.
Yes.
We're always looking for immediate gratification, right?
Yes. No, it's the baby steps, right? It's that progress. And, when thinking about what you described, it's that person, it's understanding human behavior, because whether it's a leadership team or a family team or a leadership team that are non-related,
Right.
a lot of times I know we're all catching ourselves. That's what we're doing is, hey, we haven't heard from you yet. Jim, let's get your,
Yes.
what's your ideas? Or let's let Jim talk. Yeah. I crack up sometimes when I'll see you go, shh, and I'm like, oh.
But we got the rules.
Yeah.
We already know what the rules are. It's like,
But allowing people to simply have that voice and feel heard is going to reduce drama before they even leave the room. But if they're leaving that room and not being able to have a voice, and where people weren't listening, that is going to be your first initial stages of that ripple.
when you see the defenses go up, right? We typically have to monitor the rest of that conversation or take a break. We've got to, right? And then regroup. And it's not very often when we regroup and we re-ask the question or we bring in a third party instead of just saying, we're done with that, but go back to it. By the end of the meeting or the end of the discussion, it's like, oh, everything's good. And now we're not keeping score negatively.
And we're moving the business forward.
We're moving the business forward.
Which is ultimately everyone's goal. We just, this drama and the energy of the emotions, it just shades the different lenses, how we're looking through things, and takes us down unproductive paths.
I also think that sometimes when people realize that now we have a family business, we've got family in leadership roles and management roles and going through some succession, that the disagreement and the drama that comes, there's like, well, that's just part of what family businesses are. I'm like, doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be as intense.
Correct.
And we can do better if we work on it together and want to be better.
Yes.
And so it's so much fun to work with companies that have elevated themselves to say, we need some professional help. I'm not a therapist. I don't want to claim that I'm a therapist, right? Although some people, like, sometimes you feel like a therapist because you're listening, you're reiterating things. But by bringing in any of us as a facilitator to help move and facilitate the family moving forward in a healthy way, I mean, that's what we all want, right? The Jerry Jones episode with Landman, there we go, is, ultimately he wanted the opportunity to work with his family, knowing that's going to be a bit of a challenge. But at the end of the day, when he's laying there saying, are people at my funeral or people at the, where I'm not doing well, it's because I get to be around the people that I worked with my life and be around my family. And we don't want that to be, oh, I haven't talked to mom or dad for 10 years.
Yeah, a lot less regrets, because oftentimes that's what people do is they work, they spend a lot of time doing what they do because more often than not, they become passionate about what it is. And when that is not working with family, then they miss that family, right? And then their family's off maybe because they're passionate just like their parents were, right? Or are. And then we're not spending time together.
Right.
And yeah, his story was great.
It was great. Yeah. I love that. It was like, I had more people call me, did you watch Landman? I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't see it. I have to go back and watch it.
I know, between Landman and Lioness. I'm like, hey, did you watch Lioness yet?
Right. So just to tie this up, listeners, if you are in a private business and either starting to recognize that you might end up being a family business, or maybe you already have family in your business and recognize either the drama, or you want to prevent the drama.
Yeah, you just be proactive.
Or you want to create this family constitution or the things that will help prevent drama and disagreement between your families, reach out to us at Ravella. We are passionate about wanting the legacies to continue, and so that you get to spend time working with your family and being a part of them, not just at Thanksgiving and Christmas, but on a day-to-day basis.
Well, and making sure when we are with them at Thanksgiving and holidays and birthdays,
we're not taking sides.
Yeah, that it's still family, right? And there's not the drama leaving the business coming into our family time.
Right.
That's hard too.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Leadership Hustle. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode.